Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to the cluttered inside of the Ashtoons camper on a beautiful Saturday morning, April the 10th, 2021. I'm out here in Apopka, Florida right now, and the fair I'm working at starts in a few minutes, so I don't have long to do this little video. About a month ago now, I was tagged in a questionnaire video by the NTD show.
I tag. Yeah, I'm gonna do a few. I tag Ashley from Ashtoons Travels channel. Tag you also.
And I'm not sure if there's like a time limit that you have to reply to the tag, but if there was one, I'm sure I'm probably past it now. But even a month out, I am very honored to have been tagged. That's something that doesn't happen often for me, so I'm very honored, and I'm going to go ahead and make the video anyway. And so I've got 10 questions here on country living. And after watching the video and reading over these feel more like what somebody that is, a big city person would ask somebody that lives in the country, rather than what a country person would ask another country person. It's almost stereotypes. So this is my opportunity to kind of debunk a few stereotypes about people that live in the country, I guess you could say. Okay, now to be fair, I grew up on the outskirts of Atlanta, on the suburbs outside of Atlanta, and so I was never part of a 4-H club or an FFA competition. And so, yeah, a lot of these aren't going to apply to me because I've really only lived in Tennessee for, I think, 3, maybe 4 years. And so I'm not really a country living person, although I did spend a lot of time on my grandmother's mini farm when we were doing a lot of family vacations, and those a lot of times were weeks long growing up. So there was that. Anyway, so now I am a country living person. First question is, have I ever been bitten by a snake? Well, you know what? The house that I grew up at back in the outskirts of Atlanta, a little place called Mableton, the house I grew up at had a huge open woods right across the street from where we lived with a creek running through it. So I did get a lot of opportunities to run through the woods and build forts and catch crawfish and minnows and tadpoles and stuff out of the little creek that ran through there. I even got jungle rot in my feet because I was spent so much time walking through that brackish creek water. That's another story altogether. So during that time growing up, I did encounter a lot of snakes. As a matter of fact, I was digging worms out of the mud to go fishing with, and I grasped this worm that felt a little bit more muscular than a normal worm, and it just kept coming out of the mud, coming out. And then I got to about here, and like a 1.5 feet of worm is there. I'm thinking, this is we've all seen those giant earthworms that do get that long, but this didn't seem right. Then I suddenly realized that's actually a snake. And if I keep pulling, and I'm just lucky that what I grasped was the tail end, but if I keep pulling, the head's going to come out of the mud, and that's going to give it a chance to come around and bite me. So I let go of it. But that's not where the story ends. I actually got it was an old coffee can, an old metal coffee can, and right where that snake was in the mud, I scooped it and put it on the shore. And the snake was in that bucket, so it came out and started to try to get away. So I was like, okay, so I grabbed the bucket and I put it in front of the snake, and it went into the bucket, and then I took a bunch of really heavy like sand mud and dropped that on top of it, and that actually weighed the snake down where it couldn't get back out. So I've got a snake, this is a water snake, in a bucket, weighed down by heavy sand mud, in my hand, and decided to bring it on home. Because my dad was home at the time, and I wanted to show him and ask him what kind of snake this is. I've never really had much of a fear of snakes, if you can't tell. And, you know, by all rights, I should have been bitten that day. And I probably should have been rushed off to an emergency room, because when I showed it to my dad, it turns out this was a water moccasin. I had been playing with a water moccasin. I captured it in a metal bucket with an open top and weighed it down with sand mud and carried it home, a venomous water moccasin. And my dad, I poured it out, and it kind of like was like, "What's going on? What's going on?" It went a little ways, turned around, looked back at my dad, and I was like, "What kind of snake is this, Dad?" And he said, "That son, that is a water moccasin." And my mom, of course, is like, "What are we gonna do with it?" And so we decided we were going to release it, because that's the kind of family we all have always been. We just don't kill a snake just for the crime of being a snake. No, we're not that kind of family. We have never done that. It doesn't matter if it's a rattlesnake, a water moccasin. We're not going to execute a snake for the crime of being a snake. No. So my dad goes and gets the same bucket and puts it in front. The snake's, you know, trying to get away, goes into the bucket, and he picks it up and it's like, yeah, it's trying to come out. So he puts the same mud on the top of it and decides he's going to take it to some woods that are about a quarter of a mile away and release it there, because that area has like no houses around it. So this would be a good place for it. And so he goes to get in this van and drive off, and Mom's like, you don't want to do that, because if you put that bucket in the passenger seat there and it gets out while you're driving, it could cause an accident. So Dad's like, okay. So he holds the bucket out the window. That way, if the snake starts to come out of the bucket and get onto his arm, he could just let go of it, and it would just, you know, release it. It would just bounce down the road. And it drives off, comes back a few minutes later. Turns out the snake did not get out of the bucket. He got to this big kudzu patch, abandoned, you know, foresty area with no houses around it. You know, released the snake off in there and came home. And that was the end of the story. That was my water moccasin story. No, I've never been bit by a snake, but by all rights, I should have been. Question number 2, have I ever been sprayed by a skunk? Again, this really feels like a question that a city person would ask somebody living in the country. I've only ever seen a wild skunk once, all of my years. Hiking trails up and down the Smoky Mountains, only ever actually seen a skunk once. I do know this much about skunks from Mythbusters, that it actually takes a lot more harassing them to get them to spray than you might think. So the spray is not like an aerosol can, like a hairspray. No, it's more like a little squirt gun, and it's like maybe an ounce, probably less. And I know that because Lo, my best friend Lo, her dog Clancy, was once sprayed directly in the forehead by a skunk, and it actually left a big spot. You know, so it's like a little squirt gun. It's not a mist, and it's not very much, but it is just as potent as you've ever heard, maybe even a little more. But tomato sauce, no, that's not what they ended up using to get it out. It was more of like an alcohol and some other mixture they end up going with. No, I've never been sprayed by a skunk. By the way, I'm out here with the great Tim Reed. He's working on a picture of him and his wife as the Mandalorian theme. Joanne is Grogu there. Anyway, okay, question number 4. What is my policy on wearing shoes in the house? I actually don't have a problem with people wearing the shoes in the house, as long as they are considerate and they take the time to actually look at their shoes, see if there's something caked up on there. And yeah, like cow poop, dog poop, squirrel skulls. Yeah, I like to get those thick brown but bristled mats, and make sure that you really rake your shoes off real good. And there's then I put another mat out in front of the door, so if your shoes are wet or whatnot, you've got a little bit to get them dry. I suppose if I had something like white shag carpet, my opinion might be a little different. But I think white shag carpets in general are not very smart because it's a white cloth that is affixed permanently to the floor and can't be really washed easily. It just is not very smart. I like hardwood floors, vinyl floors, tile, that kind of stuff, something that can be swept and washed easily. And if you have something like that, then yeah, you know, the whole idea of unlacing your shoes and taking them off and then walking around and, you know, oh, I forgot something outside, now I got to go through that whole process of lacing my shoes back up again. Yeah, it just seems like really inconvenient, and no, I don't like that idea at all. All right, next question. Ever heard a noise in the woods that you can't explain? Yeah, of course. But the thing about noises in the woods is this: you'll notice that as it gets darker and your eyes can't see, your other senses kind of heighten, and then your imagination starts messing with you. Things like squirrels, groundhogs, possums, raccoons, they dig through leaves to find grubs and worms and stuff like that. And so they're not just walking around on their little feet, they're actually burrowing and trying to find something, especially at night. You know, a lot of them are nocturnal. So something as small as a raccoon or a squirrel is going to sound like a giant monster to your eyes that can't see, to your mind that's playing tricks on you, your imagination going crazy on you. So yeah, a squirrel's going to sound like a giant grizzly bear. Is, you know, just notice it next time when you actually see a squirrel at twilight and what they're doing. They're burrowing and digging. Like, we gotta find something to eat. And they're making noise, and it sounds big. But as far as like maybe a guttural animal grunt noises, I can't say I've ever heard one that I would translate as a giant monster, a Bigfoot. There's something out there. If I did hear something like that, I would probably attest it to a black bear or deer. As a matter of fact, deer have a huff that they make. That if you didn't know what it was, it could be a little scary. And coyotes, my goodness, coyotes are tiny little dogs with a loud instrument. When they get to howling and then the others get to howling back, it sounds like you've got, you know, timber wolves surrounding you that are gonna just eat you alive, but they're tiny little coyotes. Question number 6. What do you call the holiday that follows last Monday in May? This one is a little confusing to me because I know that the last Monday in May is Memorial Day. But the question is the one that follows the last Monday in May. So after the last Monday in May, I actually had to look this up. And June 6th is D-Day, or Doomsday. That marks the anniversary of the invasion of the beaches of Normandy, the big tactical strike that turned the tide in World War II. So I don't know which one you're asking about, but yeah, I call Memorial Day, and I call D-Day, D-Day. I don't know of any other name that you can call them, but there you go, that's what I call them. Have I ever drank from a well, a spring, or a cistern? The only one I haven't drank from is a cistern. From what I understand, a cistern is like when you've got a well or a spring that doesn't really replenish itself fast enough to supply water to a house. The trickle is too slow. And so there's a reservoir that a pump stores the water in, and then the water pump that goes to the house or residence or whatever is actually pumped out of the tank, and that's called a cistern. So a cistern would still be a spring or a well, technically, just that has sat there a little longer. So I think I've probably drank out of all three, really. My grandmother's house in Fernandina Beach, Florida, she always just had well water. As a matter of fact, in Florida, that's almost all people have because the water table is so high, so it makes more sense to just get yourself a well than to pay throughout your entire life to a water company. And my grandmother's house in Tennessee, Rogersville, Tennessee, also was supplied by a natural spring. And now my parents' house out in Greeneville, Tennessee, is supplied by a well. So I will say that spring water and well water, if you're drinking it a lot and then you try to drink tap water, you're going to be able to tell the difference. That tap water has got a very chemical smell to it after you've drank nice spring water and well water for a while. And I highly recommend it. If you have a chance to, you know, spend a few $1,000s and have yourself a well put in or tap into a spring, it's worth it. Go for it. Do it. It's great. Is it? Tim's getting into the snickerdoodles.
Snickerdoodles.
Snickerdoodles. Okay. Question number 8. Would I rather snap beans, peel taters, or shuck corn? Well, I started this video off by saying I come from the outskirts of Atlanta and I'm not really a country living person, but in all honesty, I have done all 3 of these things a lot. I have spent a lot of hours doing all 3 of these things. Okay, so snapping beans, and that's the kind of beans that have that hard to chew thread that goes over the top, so you have to snap them the ends and then pull that out before you boil them. That is, yeah, sorry, head cold, still getting over it. That is really, really boring to do. So I'm gonna say, no, I'd rather not do that. There it is. There's my picture of Casey Neistat I use as a placeholder. All right, guys, what do you think?
It looks like a silly rah-rah.
Yes, it do.
Looks like a silly rah-rah.
Okay, so snapping beans is really, really boring. Okay, and then shucking the corn, I hate doing that because it's like the juice from the corn starts getting your hand sticky, and then I feel like I've never gotten all of the what do they call those hairs? The silk? Yeah, right. The corn silk. I'm peeling it, and it doesn't seem to matter how long I'm still pinching and peeling, there's still more stuck on there. It's like I never completely get it off. That gets frustrating. And I don't care for corn either. I think corn has just gotten to where it's too sugary, and it's being called a vegetable, but it's like it's gotten so sugary now. But as far as peeling potatoes, I kind of see that as like you're rotating the potato on one hand and you're seeing just how fast can I get this potato peeled. And it becomes like a game, and when a potato is done, it's a complete. There's no, trying to get more of the silky off of there. And anyway, yes, I would rather peel potatoes. Russet potatoes are not very healthy at all.
We got $20 gold.
I was just talking about how corn is not healthy, but russet potatoes have gotten very, very starchy. So, I prefer things like newt potatoes and sweet potatoes and stuff like that, where you can get a Brillo pad and just scrub the potato off real good and just leave the corn off. Leave the potato on, where you just eat the peeling, and now you've got that fiber that goes along with it. So, yeah, I'd really rather do that. It's Tim's turn. Okay, so last question number 9. Have I ever used an outhouse? I'm thinking an outhouse, if you were to really define it, it means like an old farmhouse that does not have a bathroom inside, but in order to use the bathroom, you have to go out of the outhouse, and use an outhouse that is actually like goes right into a hole in the ground. Right. And they are not a place where you want to spend a whole lot of time. Okay. So I've used porta-johns, of course. I work at fairs. So I've used porta-johns, but I don't think that counts as an outhouse. So yeah, as far as ever staying at a farmhouse that didn't have indoor plumbing and you had to use an outhouse, no, I've never done that. I've never had to stay at a place like that. That has not happened. Okay. Street tacos and a mangonada, and Uchada is coming, right? Yes. He's coming. Yeah. I'm getting amped up for the day. All right. Thank you.
Get a selfie of you and your taco?
Oh, you know it, yeah.
Yes.
I gotta take this bite with this whole Midway
Gotcha.
food aisle right behind me. And yes, I asked for extra cilantro. I committed that American sin of loving cilantro and asking for extra.
Gotta get your teeth.
I'm gonna get my teeth. Alright guys, that is gonna be it for this video. And no, I'm not gonna tag anyone else because this video is a month late. And so I think the whole idea of the tag chain is kind of dead now anyway. But if you've enjoyed this video at all, make sure to indicate so by hitting the thumbs up like button. Bing! Subscribe if you haven't already. Turn on notifications. I'll talk to you down in the comments and look forward to seeing you in the next one.